Привет, I'm Chuck Olinik, a Ukrainian-American baptized with the name Yaroslav, and that's the name I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent, or most people call me Yari. I have a fondness for Slavic folk tales, for the skazki as the Russians would call them, or the kazki as Ukrainians call them, fairy tales. And I also have a great love for the Bylini, the hero tales, the stories of the Bogatyr, the heroes of the court of Volodymyr Bright Sun or Volodymyr Red Sun, who held court in Kiev, the way Arthur held court in Camelot. And I wade through these stories because I want to understand what my ancestors would have talked about and how my 11th century Slavic persona would have passed the time. Sitting on a winter's night by the peach, the giant oven that dominates a peasant hut, and what kind of stories would my persona have listened to or even told? There's hundreds of these tales, and in going through them, you're going to find similarities. Over the next two videos, I'm going to tell you two near identical tales of Ilya Muromets or Ilya of Murom, the mightiest of the Bogatyr. Think the Rus version of Lancelot, without the complications of infidelity and betrayal. But these two similar tales recall one of another Bogatyr, Alyosha Popovich, and the pagan Tugarin. Alyosha Popovich is often connected in popular imagination with Ilya Muromets and Dobrina Nikitich. They're the big three of the Bogatyr. Alyosha is the youngest of the young Bogatyr, not quite a Superman, but he's bold and courageous, he's cunning, but he's also proud and meddlesome and crude. His foe in the Tales of the Borderland 55, which I told, is Tugarin, the pagan. But being a pagan isn't bad enough. He was a brutish creature, twice the girth of an oak tree and nearly as tall, his eyes an arrow's length apart, his ears a dozen vershoks long. But in this pair of tales, the hero is not Alyosha, but Ilya, the mightiest Bogatyr, and his foe shall be Idolishche, the idol or idolater. Even the insults and the provocations are the same. So why retell this? Because now it's an Ilya Muromets story, and he was the most beloved of the Bogatyr. Who shall tell us of the things of old, and of the things that have been? Of that Ilya of Murom, of Ilya Muromets, the son of Ivan. Ilya Muromets swore blood brotherhood with Dobrina Nikitich. Then they saddled their good horses and rode forth on the open fields, and they journeyed on for about 3 months and found no opponent worthy of their steel. Then they met a passerby, a beggar, singing psalms. His shirt weighed 15 pud, and his hat 10 pud, and his stick was 10 sashens long. Ilya Muromets set on him with his horse and was going to try his mighty strength on him. Then the passing beggar saw Ilya and said, "Hail, Ilya Muromets! Do you recollect? I learned my letters with you in the same school, and now you are setting your horse on me? Who am I? Only a beggar, as though I were an enemy, and you do not know that a very great misfortune has befallen Kiev town. The infidel knight, the mighty man, the dishonorable Idolishche has arrived. His head is as big as a beer cauldron, and his shoulders a sashen broad. There's a span length between his brows, and between his ears there is a tempered dart. And he eats an ox at a time, and he drinks a cask at a time. The Prince of Kiev is very aggrieved with you that you have left him in such straits." So Ilya Muromets changed into the beggar's dress and rode straight back to the palace of the prince and cried out in a knightly voice, "Hail to thee, Prince of Kiev! Give me a wandering beggar alms." And the prince saw him and spoke in this wise, "Come into my palace, beggar. I will give you food and drink, and will give you gold on your way." So the beggar went into the palace and stood at the stove and looked round. Idolishche asked to eat, so they brought him an entire roasted ox, and he ate it to the bones. Then Idolishche asked for drink, so they brought him a cauldron of beer, and 20 men had to bring it in, and he held it up to his ears and drank it all through. Ilya Muromets said, "My father had a gluttonous mare. It guzzled until its breath failed." Idolishche could not stand this affront and said, "Hail, wandering beggar! Do you dare me? I could take you in my hands. If it had been Ilya Muromets, I would have even braved him." "Well," Ilya Muromets said, "that is the kind of man he was." And he took off his heavy cap of many poods and struck him lightly on the head, and he nearly knocked through the walls of the palace, took Idolishche's trunk and flung it out. And in return, the prince honored Ilya Muromets, praising him highly, and placed him amongst the mighty knights of his court. It was at the feast I heard this tale. There it was, I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.